And I think the most troubling part to me of all this is that we highlight the suffering, we highlight the needs of our people, we highlight the needs of all people who are experiencing this horrible act of violence.
Lyndon B. Johnson has a quote that says that if you can convince the poorest white man that he's better off than the best colored person, you can continue to pick his pockets. Informed, intelligent, in the black.
The shutdown is about to hit millions of people who depend on government programs to feed their families, pay for health insurance, and send their kids to preschool.
A federal judge ordered the Agriculture Department to continue paying for food stamps during the shutdown, but it was unclear when that money would arrive. Roughly 1 in 8 Americans rely on SNAP. More than half of recipients are children and the elderly. Other social safety net programs could also see funding lapses like WIC and Head Start. Another key deadline this weekend, more than 20 million people could face higher health insurance premiums when open enrollment begins under the Affordable Care Act, with prices expected to rise by as much as 114%. Democrats have called for an extension of tax subsidies, but Republicans, including the president, said they must reopen the government first.
If you've listened to this show at any time during the period of us having it, I've always mentioned this, that there are 3 ways that people in our community are able to get some level of money, right? Typically, you have people who are employed, who are getting a paycheck. Then you have those who are getting some sort of check from some sort of outside entity, SSI, Social Security, some sort of government assistance, and crime, right? 3 ways typically. There's unpacking, there's levels to each one of those. But when you begin to take away, when you have limited employment opportunities in poor working class environments, you're down to 2. Then when you begin to remove a staple, right, not only in Black households, but in households across the country, across racial lines, you leave one option left. And that option typically is trying to find some sort of way to providing for your family via survival, what others of the state would call crime. And no one is here condoning or saying crime, as they would call it, is the answer. But we have to have an honest conversation for our people on the ground that say, yo, this is the perfect time for your mutual aid benefits to get connected with your community and your neighbors to figure out how you are going to share resources. Because it's going to get dark for you. And we're not just simply talking about the food stamps component, SNAP, which is wildly important, right? Which is a ton of people that are going to be benefited by this, and it's going to be really hurting, particularly going into the most capitalistic consumer period of our year, Thanksgiving and Christmas. But I think there's a larger conversation that we have to begin having, and I'm thankful that we're having it here. When you see the diatribes and the rhetoric that takes place on social media, this is a Trump is evil conversation. While we're not looking to say that he's not evil, what we are going to do is give you a fuller context of what's taking place. Right? There's a number of people who can get the finger pointed at him. He may be the conductor of this evil train, but it's
the
whole
conductor's
lot of
going to change
folks on the back.
eventually, and his train's going to keep going, bro.
Yeah, and there's people on this train who are managing those cars behind those Republicans and Democrats who are wildly responsible for the destruction of what we've taken place with poor people.
Lyndon B. Johnson has a quote that says that if you can convince the poorest white man that he's better off than the best colored person, you can continue to pick his pockets. And at some point, he'll even give you the money out of his pocket without you asking. White rich elites and our government have convinced overwhelmingly the majority of our population that any type of government assistance is synonymous with Black people.
Yes.
And that because it's synonymous with Black people,
they don't want any
they are unworthy of it, and nobody wants any parts of it.
Yeah.
There are 42 million people
42
on
million
SNAP.
people on SNAP.
42 million people on SNAP. That means there's, for every 8 people you know, at least one of them is on SNAP.
Yeah.
That's true.
over 60%, over 60% of the people that are on SNAP are working full-time jobs.
Yes. So these are working class people who
Working,
have
working for
these are not the lazy people
These
that the
aren't the
stereotype.
lazies
the
that people
working
keep trying to
for.
These are
convince you that we're
working
talking
people,
about.
sure, who are
Working
using
class.
this to cover until the next check comes.
Yep.
Because that's what it is. It's a
That's the way
bridge.
people have convinced you of that
Yeah,
these people are just lazy, that they're not working.
they're
Over
lazy,
60%.
shiftless, and not working. The
They're
welfare
not doing
king, the
anything.
welfare
Yep.
queen trope
Welfare
that was
queens. But
brought
the thing about
into
it is,
building.
the
Welfare
unfortunate part
king.
is that the majority of people work for places like the Walmarts, the Targets, the McDonald's. These places, these companies, these multi-million-dollar companies,
Billion, sorry. Well, I'm going to correct you.
multi-billion-dollar companies,
Yes.
and I
And
thank you for that correction.
employees on assistance.
Yeah.
Thank you for that correction. That these folks are working full time and still using government assistance. These
Sure.
are companies that make upwards of $20 billion in profit.
Why
profit.
are your employees on assistance?
20 billion. I want to
Billion.
say that again.
Yeah.
$20 billion in profit.
Sure.
Not their expenses.
Yeah.
All the bills and people have been paid, and they're taking home $20 billion.
$20 billion.
And part of the complication that we have here is that these companies and our government are in alignment with one another, because you're giving these companies all of these benefits, all of these tax breaks, and so on, which is why they say they're comfortable with not paying people a living wage, because they know the federal government is going to kick off on the other end. And then at the same time, the federal government on the other end is saying, we don't want to pay all this money to you lazy, shiftless people out here. So we're going to cut these benefits, even though we know that we've cut the ability for you to make that money on the back end so that you wouldn't need the government assistance. And then they'll turn around and tell you that you're unworthy of it.
Sure.
That you don't need it. That if you need it, that you're some poor, non-working black person in an urban city, or some useless white young male that's able-bodied, that's living in his parents' basement, that's not doing what he's supposed to do. So I want us to recognize how they're trying to strategize and how they're bringing the messaging to people on a daily basis.
But then they're bringing messaging that has existed for years. Those messaging are coming back to the surface, and to be honest, they never went deep. They've always been on the surface. There's always been this response to this. Well, they should just get a job. And I think the most troubling part to me of all this is that we highlight the suffering, we highlight the needs of our people, we highlight the needs of all people who are experiencing this horrible act of violence, right? Because it's important.
That's what it is.
This is
Watching
an
people
act
starve is a
of
horrible act of
violence. And so we get into the conversation of people talking about nonviolence is the answer, all those things. This is an act of violence. Starving people, keeping food from them intentionally is an act of violence. But the problem that I'm having more than anything,
it is
absolutely.
Quite literally,
that
that starvation tactic is one of the markers that the UN uses to say that there is a
to violate.
taking place.
Yes,
to say
it is
committing
one
war
of the
crimes.
things.
You're starving people.
You're starving people intentionally, right?
Intentionally.
Intentionally. And so then we get people on social media, and we know social media is not the marker for intelligence, because across our country, most motherfuckers are reading on a 6th grade literacy level anyway. And it is indicative of that. If you need to see that data in full play, log on to social media when some event in the country takes place, and you will see a whole bunch of motherfuckers with a 6th grade reading level trying to tell you why people should not be on Snap and how to get off Snap and all these different types of things. But the problem I'm having is the way that black folks are regurgitating white supremacy, white Christian nationalism tropes by attacking other people who are receiving Snap. Like it is the wildest thing on the planet to me to watch Negroes get on social media and tell other black folks that they should just go out and get a damn job and stop sitting. I'm
bootstraps.
Like,
pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
And again, to pull in the white Christian Protestant work ethic ideology, it is wildly coming from a lot of people who hold on to Jesus being their Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, their Lord and Savior. There's a connection there between white Christian nationalism, the Protestant work ethic, and people pushing that people don't deserve to have the government, which is part of the role of a government to take care of the people. So again, Trump is not someone who should be held up as the example of Christian perfectionism.
We've been told on many occasions, the statistic is that most Americans, the overwhelming number of Americans, close to, if not 60, over 60% of Americans cannot afford to take a $500 emergency. Okay? A $500 emergency. So if your car breaks down and you need something, new tires, all that shit, that people could literally go into, I don't want to say bankruptcy, but would not be able to foot that bill to survive.
Yes.
$500. Okay?
Yeah.
Elon Musk came out the other day and said that he's intentionally pushing towards being the Earth's first trillionaire. Earth's first trillionaire.
Yeah.
And you would ask yourself, why does Elon Musk want to be a trillionaire?
Why?
Is it to eliminate childhood hunger? No.
Absolutely not.
Is it to eliminate homelessness in the United States? No.
Nope, not that either.
Is it to make sure that we can fight cancer from now until the time of memorial? No, that's not it. He said he wants to become the first world's trillionaire, so he has enough power to keep away those people that want to take power from him and his company. That's the reason why he wants to be a trillionaire. And I want you guys to stop for a second and think about that, because when we talk about millions and billions and trillions, those are numbers that the common American, most people cannot even fathom the idea of how big that amount is. If you were to spend $10,000 a month and you had $1 million, and you spent $10,000 a month, it would take you almost 8.5 years to blow out all of that money. Okay? If you have $1 billion, and you spent $10,000 a month, it would take you 8,333 years to spend all of that money. Mind you, Elon Musk is worth $500 billion.
You know,
Jeff Bezos is worth $250 billion.
You know,
what's his name? John Ellison, the guy who owns Oracle and all these other stations that they recently bought. It's like $300 some odd billion. Zuckerberg is worth $250 billion. We can't even fathom it. So when you see poor people fighting for using the what do you want to call it? The talking marks and the rhetoric of people that are rich, it blows my mind that you should just work harder. Not that these people are stealing money from you, that you need to work harder. So I'm going to ask you guys a larger question, because I had this conversation very briefly on the end of our live session. Shout out to Carlos Enriquez and Cleveland Payne for coming and having that conversation. Recently, the mayor of Chicago, Brandon Johnson, called for a general strike, a national strike.